evening and welcome to Game Development Vlog Part 3. I just want to start off tonight with something semi-related. Me and my band Coda Rushin played a really nice show last night at a place called Bar Black Sheep. I just want to say thank you to everyone who came along, who made it happen, to the band, to everyone. There's just too many names to mention right now, and it's a bit unrelated, but I just wanted to, while I was live on the internet, just say thanks to everyone for that. That was a really good night. It's nice to get back out and do a gig, especially a Coda Russian gig with a band. On a related note, I just want to say something that I haven't actually said on any of the previous broadcasts, which I really wanted to say, which was if there's any ideas that you see in my game, if there's any bits of it that you like, any things that you want to kind of cannibalize, bastardize using your own projects, then do feel free. I think I said in number 1 that I would be that it started as sort of like an idea of turning it into a video game. If anyone does want to turn it into a video game that's not specifically my one but has a lot of the same elements, then yeah, go ahead and feel free. If anyone wants to take these mechanics and things and turn them into another board game, then feel free. Just obviously steer clear of all of the copyright things like the name that I'm trying to use and a lot of the other things. I'm not likely to come after you for copyright, but if this game sells to someone else in the future, then I can't guarantee your safety. Right, so yeah, the point of this update, I'm going to go back and cover a couple of things that I covered in number 2, but in far more detail, because I've done a lot of work over the last few days, just in bits and bobs, just when I can. I did want to come on and actually do some work on it last night. I actually gave it about an hour when I got home from the gig because I was just so buzzed with adrenaline, and I've been working on it for a couple of hours today, but I thought, get the work done, focus, and then I could come on and tell you all about it. So today, as you might be able to tell from the stream title, we're talking about the high street. And it all kind of started off with this idea here, invested wealth. And really the whole idea was, how do I get people to like have security for their wealth score? As I said in the previous episodes, the wealth is really sort of like your main score in this game. So how do I make it so that as players are going through, they can essentially secure and invest their wealth so they can either increase it or just keep a value there. And it started as that, and then it went on to, well, I've got to move the Pro Studio to some sort of property market then, because if I'm going to do it like that, then there's going to be some idea of assets. So the Pro Studio, which was kind of, it was lumped in with the talents for no reason, it was kind of out of place there. I decided, no, it's probably better within a property market, which helped me develop a property market. But with this idea of assets, I decided to kind of form different types of assets. So you've got instruments, transport, and peripheral equipment. And then I thought about different types of properties that you could get. So it started as homes, pro studios, music venues, which would give you different buffs and debuffs, and then rehearsal rooms similarly give you different buffs and debuffs. Then I thought about how about a transport market? A player would have to successfully pass their driving test to buy transport, right? So there'd have to be a driving test in the game. So that I'll have to build an interaction gameplay loop for. I haven't done that yet, but I will. And then if the player does not pass the driving test, then they must rely on what I was calling sort of a working title for sort of not talent but more like an interaction buff, was troopers with transport, so people who can drive shit for you. And then I came up with renamed markets, different shops: music shop, car dealership, pawn shop, estate agent. And that kind of brings me up to the point where I'm going to start showing you something. Now there's a bit of a spoiler there at the bottom. If you've already read that, I'm sorry, don't read it if you don't want a spoiler. But I'll probably go into that in more detail in a minute anyway. So yeah, just bear in mind there will be spoilers. So if you want to get to the end result of this game and not have any spoilers, this is probably a bad video to be watching. But yeah, so let's crack on. There is more things to go through underneath, more ideas or ideas, as you can see there in the top left. But we'll get back to that. So let's just look at what I've done. So here's the finance cards, and as you can see, we're actually looking at the sidebar, which is all the additional cards you can get as part of like a finance activity. So if you land on a finance space, you draw one of the cards from the main deck, and that will allow you to basically pass on, depending on how you respond to it, etc. Will allow you to kind of either draw or will affect one of these cards in the sidebar, which are kind of like items, possessions, inventory, however you want to think about it. But what we've got here, as you can see, was all the cards that I'd originally come up with. These were all part of the original sort of prototype and development, and I will be bulking them out a bit more. I have already drawn up some of the how the cards will actually work. So for instance, for copyright claim and copyright infringement, I've got a system there where, depending on a roll, a different amount will be awarded, and then the player who has copyright infringement has to pay the player with copyright claim over however many turns they want. At the end of the game, any outstanding balance is deducted from the player with copyright infringement and added to the wealth score of the player with copyright claim. So it kind of works kind of like a court-mandated settlement that the players have to abide by. So it kind of throws a spanner in the works for some people, but for others it's just like this sudden and much appreciated advantage. So there you go, that's copyright claim and copyright infringement. I just thought I'd quickly show you those while we're here. But getting back to what I was talking about, now you'll see here I've put these in different colours. Disregard them really in terms of the finished game. They're just there to help me with my eyes in terms of seeing what's going on in this spreadsheet. So we have first in green, we have like properties, places you can live, places you can buy in order to basically give yourself buffs and debuffs. Now, in order to get any of these cards I'm about to show you, you have to have landed on finance and drawn the high street card, right, which gives you options of where to go. You can either go to Cathedral Sound, which is the music shop, Wonga Wanglers, which is the 24-hour pawn shop. 50 points if you can guess what I based that on. Macupalot and Sons, which is the estate agent. Larry's Limos and Logistics, the car dealership, and then Cowlington Building Society, which is basically the bank. And then you get a choice. There's also an interaction card that you can draw now that basically says, oh, it doesn't look like there's anybody here. Do you want to go to the high street instead? So basically then that basically hot links you to the high street. So if you draw that particular card in the interaction, so it gives you basically a chance to land on a high street either in a finance deck or in a interaction deck. So some people might find that handy, having those kind of two opportunities. Some might find it kind of frustrating. So we'll find out when we actually get into the later end of development. So I'm just going to zoom these in a bit, because I realise some of you might be on phones. So let's go two more clicks. Right, so everybody starts with Nan's spare bedroom, alright? And the reason that sits at the property shop is if someone moves out of Nan's spare bedroom, then that goes back to the property shop, and they can basically get it back if they want to sell one of their properties. If they end up homeless, they can always end up in Nan's spare bedroom. I'm thinking about making this so you have to have nepotism 1, which would be the case because you'd have to roll your nepotism score at the beginning, and that would be 1. So actually, hang on. So, and then stick. Yeah, oh, I'll take care of that later. I was just wondering how to format them, and it's just detracting. It's detracting from the service that I'm providing you. So yeah, everyone starts in Nan's spare bedroom. That costs you nothing to live at Nan's spare bedroom, and it gives you storage space for 2 assets, and that's going to become important the more and more things that you buy throughout the game. How much storage space you have, and that, as you see. Different things will give you different storage things, different items will take up different storage amounts, but most things just basically take up one storage, and different things will give you different storage amounts. So, for instance, if you live in an spare bedroom, you can fit a laptop and wires and one musical instrument in there quite comfortably. If you have three, then you've probably got to have a car so that you can stash a couple of things in there, or other options which I'll go into in a minute. So yeah, you got another spare bedroom. Everyone starts there. You've got a couple of different flats that you can move into. You've got the different sort of, these are more like houses close to town, sort of close to the centre of town. Then you've got these two, which are a little bit more out of town, but they're a little bit more luxurious and give you a few more benefits. 4 Blake's Lane, Patty's Cottage, and 1 North Walk. They are the more luxurious end of town, so they're still in the centre of town, but much more luxurious. Flagshire House and Mapletree Estate are the top level properties. So they basically give you loads and loads of benefits, but will cost you a lot of money. And you will require certain things, especially as you see here, different attributes, in order to gain those places. And I might change them as we go through development. But okay, then you've got like basically different businesses you can buy. So you can buy the music shop, and that means that you get to set the price of all the musical instruments in the shop. So if you get there while there's lots of musical instruments, yes, it will cost you 75 grand plus 25% of the value of all of the stock in the shop, but then you get to decide how much the musical instruments sell for. So if other players want to come along and buy musical instruments, they have to come through you. So that could be a huge advantage in terms of how you swing the game. So if you buy it early on when you get a big windfall, then you might decide, right, I'm going to buy the music shop and I'm basically going to sit on that asset, and I'm going to plumb everyone for like 10% extra, 20% extra, 50% extra, 100% extra on all the instrument prices. You could shoot yourself in the foot with that, because then people go, well, then I just won't buy any musical instruments off you. And then you just got like basically this thing sat there. But the way that could benefit you in the long run is at the end of the game, you basically earn an asset value of $250,000 plus the actual face value of all of the instruments that you've got left in the shop. So that's a huge boon there, but it will cost you a lot of money to get that, as you'll see. I think, during episode 2, Devlog 2, we went into, we were window shopping for musical instruments. You'll be very pleased that I haven't bought the trumpet yet. I was drunk last night, and I just kept on having these moments where I was like, I wonder how much money I have in my bank account. I wonder if I should buy that trumpet. And I didn't, so you should be very proud of me. But yeah, so you should. But so we covered a lot of that, but that basically all falls within this music shop here. So you can either visit the music shop on the high street, or you can actually buy the music shop and then control it. You can buy the local rehearsal rooms. Mr. Gig is actually the name of a local rehearsal room that all of my bands use. And I'm actually going to ask them tomorrow if we're allowed to use their name in the game, otherwise that might change to something else. But yeah, that takes off the cost of performance. That actually reduces the cost of live performance, because if you own a rehearsal room, then you don't need to pay so much money in preparation for a gig, because a lot of that money goes on rehearsals. There you go, you've learned something about the music industry today. That's too condescending, I apologise. I'm really high. Chapel Street Studios, that's like basically Pro Studio. So where we were talking about Pro Studio before, that's now Chapel Street Studios. And in later expansions, what I'll do is add more and more studios in. So for the time being, only one person can have the Pro Studio, which means only one person can be a professional music producer. What I might do by the time this reaches production is actually add a second one in, just to increase the likelihood of people being able to become a music producer. Because that's one of the requirements, is that you have a Pro Studio. So we'll see what happens there. Here's an interesting one, is the Stack and Store, Abbey Stack and Store. So what that is actually a storage facility, and this, again, is an absolute huge boon, because although it's going to cost you $2.5 million to actually buy the place, what it gives you is unlimited storage and potential income. And what I mean by that is similar to the music shop. You get to set the price of storage at your facility. Hang on, let me take a sip. I know you weren't stopping me, but I just thought I'd put the blame on you. So yeah, if this isn't actually owned by another player, so if a player encounters this card and it's not owned by another player, what they can do is they can buy up to 30 extra storage from this place for £50 each for every 10. So for 150 quid per season, so they have to take that off of their salary, they can get 30 extra storage spaces, right? This will be taken note of in the ledger, which will be updated. So yeah, the extra storage here for players are limited to 30. But if you own the facility, you basically get unlimited, right? So if a player purchases this property, they receive unlimited storage at no cost, and the player that owns this property can adjust the cost of storage at their discretion. So if say for instance a player has come along and they've bought 3 storage units for 150 quid, right? And a player comes along and buys it, well then they can actually change the price of that storage unit to either outprice the player, kick them out, go, oh no, you can't afford it anymore, or actually just increase it ever so slightly. So yeah, the player has to pay more, but the other player can make a little bit of extra income. The interesting thing is, if players already own storage units, and then someone comes along and buys the storage thing, then they automatically get the money for the storage units added to their seasonal payoff. So it's a huge boon again, but like I say, it's going to cost you $250,000. In the end of the game, when the game gets counted, you'll get 5 million added to your score, which is amazing. So yeah. Also, if players fall on hard times, if costs become too much, then what they can actually do is they can trade all of these cards at a trading event, at an auction, at any of those things, so that they can earn a little bit of money back. But that's enough for now. We've got a couple of music venues there, so we've got a pub and then a nightclub. Then we've got vehicles, so we've got Nan's old moped, an unreliable wreck, the clever car, which I bet you can guess what I based that on, and then different sort of, so just a standard car and a couple of vans, standard car, people carrier, nicer standard car, and then 2 very nice, very expensive cars, and then a HGV, basically a lorry, and that will help you move a lot of stuff around and give you a lot of storage. Now, there's all sorts of values associated with these. They also have sort of like a financial debuff, so they cost you money. You have different movement allowances assigned to each of the vehicles, so depending on what vehicle you're driving. I'm also going to put something in basically that says that you can only have 1 vehicle out of storage at a time. So you can actually only count the movement allowance buff for 1 vehicle. You can't go, oh, well, I've got a lorry and I've got a sports car, so I've got 20 storage. And I reckon the storage, but in terms of movement allowance, yeah, the body. If your car's in out of storage, then you get the movement allowance, and then the rest of the cars are in storage or something. I still got to work that out, but I hope that made sense a little bit. It does make sense in my head. I'm just struggling to articulate that. But yeah, something to do with basically a player not being able to just stack their movement allowance based on having 20 cars or something. So yeah, you got that. They also have a purchase value, a running cost, and that's what the seasonal payoff deduction is there on the buffs and debuffs. Resale value, now that's interesting. See how I've put here, resale reduces the value to the specified amount each time the player passes the spring tile 5 times. So there'll be a note in the ledger where the band manager can take a tally of how many times the players passed the spring tile since they've owned this vehicle. I'm actually thinking about changing that to per season, and then it turns into that amount. So this would actually be every time the player passes 12 season tiles or something like that. But yeah, so for instance, on something like this, at first they can only reset it, so it costs them 30 grand to buy it. and then it will cost. And then if they want to sell it back to the dealership straight away, it's 25k. If they go around the board twice, then it will go down to 20k, 4 times 15k, 8 times 10k. If they go around the board 10 times, they've ended the game anyway. So that should work out. And then of course asset value, and then it's got a depreciation percentage there as well. So say for instance, nice and easy one to work out off on the fly, so that I don't have to show how bad I am at maths. There will be calculations in the instructions and the ledger to work these things out very quickly, so don't worry. I'm going to be looking for a maths expert, or at least a maths beginner, to come in on this project before we do the final balancing, just to make sure I've got things worked out in a not ridiculous way. So the asset value, there I've said minus 10% per season. So when you buy it, the actual asset value is the same as the purchase value, and then if you pass the season, it goes down to 225. Then it goes down to 200 and well, basically about 220, and then it'll go down to about 80, and so on and so on, until basically the value diminishes to nothing. Now, in some of these cards, have got low life expectancy. It says discard this card after passing the spring tile twice. So that means that will only last 2 years before it breaks and is unusable anymore. And then you've got the unreliable wreck, and that will only last you 4 years. I might actually change them around, but yeah, you can see what I'm trying to do there. So there's vehicles, lots of vehicles. I think there's possibly 12 or 11 vehicles. Then you've got the Wonga Wanglers, which is the pawn shop, and there you can buy all sorts of things like the laptop and wires. Move that to there. A PA system, a printer, multi-purpose repair kit, which will help you with like asset upkeep, and I'll explain that in another video. It's a lot to go into right now. Then different clothes, so vintage attire, latest fashions, and dapperware. The Thing, which is that thing that I said I'd spoil for you earlier. So spoiler alert: cover your ears. For the player that's like, oh, I can't be bothered, I don't really know what this is, they might avoid it. But for most players, they'll rush to buy this thing, because yes, it's £100 to buy it, which might be a bit much for a beginner player, and it might put them in dire straits if they try and buy this thing too soon. But what will happen is it will unlock certain interactions, and what it will be is someone that basically you interact with that will come up to you and go, do you have the thing? And if you say to them yes, they'll give you £5 million in return. So how's that? And it's just kind of like a nice little hack. So for those players that do want to kind of take a little bit of a risk straight away, they'll rush to the pawn shop, spend £100, get the thing, and then keep on hitting the interaction square in the hope that they'll get the guy asking, have you got the thing? But for the safe player, what they'll do is they'll buy it a little bit later on and then just keep hold of it, and just as a matter of course, as they're going to the interaction tile, as they're doing parties and networking events, the guy who wants the thing will surely turn up, so then they can claim their 5 million. So it's a nice little financial buff there in the game, and a nice little fun gameplay loop that's fairly close-ended. It's only really like one jump. Well, it's high street, music shop, the thing, interaction for the thing. So that's 1, 2, 3. So it's basically 4 steps in the gameplay loop. It's closed loop, doesn't really go anywhere. Yeah, you know what I mean. That thing we were talking about the other day where I did the weird drawings. Different things like how to and lifestyle books, TV and games console, that's interesting. That's like a negative debuff. So this is for people that are kind of stuck with how to get certain talents. And what it will basically do is negatively debuff a lot of things other than your inspiration. I think everything other than your inspiration. So it can actually completely screw your game up. Also, it gives you distracted until you get rid of this again. But what that will essentially enable you to do is fast track your way to So Bad You're Good and other different other different sort of like end game talents. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to think of. So, for instance, you've got So Bad You're Good, which is a musical debuff where musical buff where you need to have 0 musicality, and if you get it, then what that means is you get to bypass all musical attributes. Same for Inspiration. What is the Inspiration? I think it's Insomniac, isn't it? Or is that Aspiration? Yeah, no, it's Inspiration. Um, so Inspiration, sorry, that if you get that up to 20, then you might be able to draw that and get that, and also Aspiration, if that goes down to 0, then you might be able to draw someone else's problem. So it's a huge risk, but basically if you've got like 20 reputation, you're thinking, right, I should get this and then take the next 20 turns to basically try and get those talents, then it's a safe way to progress in the game and get those the really stupidly overpowered talents. Basically, they're stupidly overpowered. Final pressing bric-a-brac is just something you can actually repair with one of those multi-purpose repair kits. And if you do, then actually it costs you a lot less to create a vinyl record. We've got the bank where you can get insurance, you can take a loan, you can basically file for bank endorsed bankruptcy. And what it says is, this isn't strictly above board, but I hate to see you suffer any longer. So it's for players that want a way out. So all they have to do is visit the high street, go and see the banker and go, right, can I please go bankrupt? And then they roll a d6, and there's a 1 in 3 chance, 2 in 6 chance, basically, of actually getting out without charge, and then sort of like a 2, yeah, you know what I'm saying, there's like a 50-50 chance. No, I hate chances. So one of them, you'll just have to discard it. It won't do anything for you. So that'll basically end your turn. If you score a 3 or a 4, then that'll take away 100 grand, it'll cost you. And then you'll gain early retirement, and then if you score a 5 or 6, then he'll do you a big favour and just give you early retirement. And I say he, obviously it's just whoever you imagine. Low interest savings account and high interest savings account, they're different savings accounts that you can get, and what they essentially do is you deposit an amount. So for the low interest, you deposit 1,000 and you get 1% back every time you pass the season, or rather that amount grows by 1% every season. So obviously 1% of 1,000 is 1, and so hang on, no, 1% of 1,000 is 10, isn't it? I believe 10% is 100. Yeah, sorry. So it'll go up to 110, and obviously, likewise, it will just go up by 1%. I'm going to have charts that basically a band manager can reference to be able to tell how much investment's gone up over so many turns. Over so many seasons, sorry, so that they don't have to kind of keep track of that. They can just go, oh, well, you got that on turn this many, on this, and you've passed this many seasons, so it's actually worth that much. Same with the high investment, is 10 grand, but you get 5% per season, so it's a little bit better. If you try and take that money out again before the end of the game, which you might want to, if it's basically if you're right near the end of the game and you want some quick spending potential, then you'll incur a 50% charge on the initial investment. So for a grand, it will cost you 500 quid, and for what is it, 10,000? Yeah, it's 10,000 for that one. You get 5,000 charge. So there you have it. And then obviously I've now completed all of the musical instruments. We've got them all in there now. They've all got feeler text. They've all got minimum requirement checks, and they've all got, I believe, let me just double check before I lie to you. Yeah, they've all got basically the initial buff debuff, like basically what I call the card result. So they've got the card result there, but then they have no ifs, whens, buts yet. So I haven't actually written any like extra code for this, so extra script. So there's nothing else that they do, but all of them can of course be traded. So players can trade them to each other for money or for other cards. So if someone wants a violin, I did want to go over and give them a little bit of something, just so that just so that there's more of a point to them. So that is all of the assets, and as you can see, I've done a lot of work over the last couple of days. Call it work. This has been pretty fun. And it's been a nice distraction from my life, which is just an endless barrage of suffering. Did I say that out loud? No, I'm joking. It's actually been a nice couple of days. And yeah, what my plan is next is to finish off finance. I've got to finish off finance before I really move on to press. Press will be the last stage before we basically move into kind of prototyping. What I'll have to do after I do finance though is go back to Korea and through interactions, creations, talents, finances, and interlink them all, which I haven't done yet. Excuse me, I've still got this cough. Change some of the things that need to be changed, rebalanced. Some of the things that are obvious to me. Jesus. Give me just a moment. Oh, okay, that's better. So yeah, I've got to basically go back through all those cards and reinforce the game based on what I've done here in finance. Then I'll be moving on to press, doing the same, going back, reinforcing all the cards based on what I've done in press, and then we'll be starting to prototype the game. No, once I've done that, then I'll be going back and rewriting the rulebook. So there's still a lot to do in this phase, but I'm really confident with what I've done here with finance. I think I've really bulked out the finance aspect of the game here, and I really couldn't have done it without Nick's help and without a couple of ideas, of course, from Mitchell. Mitchell gave me a great idea in terms of the upkeep and in terms of getting assets and building up assets and different things like that in order to kind of secure wealth. There's still a lot of stuff that Nick suggested that I still need to work on, such as I've got the NFT scheme, which is all about basically kind of future investments, and also but there was another one as well, which is called, I think it's called like future currency. Actually no, I believe that might be, where is it? There is New Age currency, so that's kind of a cryptocurrency. NFT scheme's kind of like an online scheme. So, yeah. So I've got a lot to work on here on finance, but it should be done relatively soon. And as far as the other ideas that we were talking about, let's have a look. So yeah, the next sorts of things I want to start looking at as well is going back to talent and draw out talent cards where you can actually draw +1, +2, and +3 cards on a turn. So say for instance, you go to an interaction space, you're sick of having to just kind of deal with whoever you find, and you want to have the opportunity to bump into 2, 3, or 4 people, then you can do that with these talents. Similarly with other things, but they will have rules depending on what kind of card you're drawing. So you can't pick up 3 career cards and choose all 3. You have to choose one of them, etc. So it will kind of like give you the opportunity for more drawing potential, but also sort of keeps you with the same limited choice. Interaction card, no one around, head to the high street. So yeah, that needs to go in. Unless I've already drawn that, I don't think I have. But that needs to go in. Add the bank to the high street, which is done today, so we can get rid of that. Boop. And then, right, the upkeep system. So this is where it gets kind of interesting with the upkeep system. So you have the general upkeep finance cards, and in the card catalogue, just to quickly show you, they are identified by these 4 cards. So if your instrument upkeep, that'll be an event where you have to service all your musical instruments. Transport, where you have to service your transport or your vehicles. Wardrobe, where you have to essentially update your wardrobe, buy new clothes. But that will just be like, you know, take them to a tailor, take them to something, whatever. And then property upkeep will just be like, basically you've got to upkeep all of your properties. So, so that they'll be your general upkeep finance cards, and they'll appear within within the finance deck. So, like I say, instrument service and MOT, etc. And then meta upkeep press cards, and the reason I call it meta upkeep press cards because these are more like worldly story things that actually cause issues for you and require you to spend money on a couple of different areas at once. So, for instance, widespread flooding, so that will affect your properties, your instruments, basically everything. Same with tornado, yada yada. Crime spree might only affect your vehicles, you know, things like that. So, and what that'll mean is you'll have to pay money depending on how many assets you've got, what the value of those assets are, etc. Notice I like the word etc. It just stops you from from elaborating too much. And then, yeah, so general affects a specific type of asset, meta affects a group of assets. Insurance can nullify certain events, and that's important there. Is that if you go ahead to the bank and get insurance, it might cost you a lot of money. But yeah, I'm going to work something into the insurance card where basically you have to go to the, you have to revalue it every year. So every time you pass the spring tile, you have to do the calculation again to work out how much your insurance is for that year, because otherwise players can get insurance really early on when they've only got like 500 quid's worth of assets, and then just basically use that to exploit the game. So I do want to work out something there, and it will probably be along the lines of what I said. So yeah, the insurance, which I've kind of already worked out, is the summary value of all your assets plus your seasonal bonus. So that should actually say seasonal payoff. You can tell I wrote this in a hurry. That's just seasonal payoff. Oh yeah, by the way, the reason some of these appear in like lower case and uppercase, sometimes you might notice they're like different in particular lines, like here for instance. That's because I'm in here, the card's got a log working on a card, and I'll jump out very quickly, right, so I'm going to jump back to where I was. So depending on how I'm formatting that card at that particular time depends on how I formatted it here. It's nothing to do with how important the idea is or elements of the idea. These are all just basically scribble notes. So yeah, summary value of all your assets plus the seasonal payoff. I've put here divided by 10. What I ended up putting on the card was divided by 4. Oh, I see what I did here, and I didn't actually include this. I should have looked back at my ideas. So basically, if you divide it by 10, you can pay it every spring. So that's cheaper rate for paying it every year. Or if you divide it by 4 and pay it every season. So I might actually make that less complicated and do what I've done and just basically go, yeah, it's divided by 4. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is actually an idea that will come up when we're doing press, which will be the next stage. And it's me and Nick were having a bit of a brainstorming session today, and this was an idea that came up that we kind of fought over for a little while, kind of claimed that it could be a different game, then decided there was no way that game could ever work, and then basically landed on this little sort of like post-it note of an idea. So hang on, you might be able to pretty much tell what I'm going to say by looking at that. So sorry if my face is in the way. I'll read it to you. What that says is audiences associated with press. So what I'm saying there is, depending on your press activity, depending on different cards that you pick up with press, will like basically have different audience associated with them. And the way I want to deal with that is kind of like assets. Is audiences will kind of work like assets. Is you collect different audience members as you go along, and each of those audience members has like different buffs, debuffs, etc., and a demographic. So it'll be a bit like they're like picking up NPCs. So it'll be a bit like suddenly a trading card game, but you won't be able to trade your fans. Right, so yeah, the next part of that was various demographics have buff/debuff effects. So the various demographics could be old, young, rich, poor, just a regular fan, or like a fanatic, like a super fan. And yeah, that will have a greater effect on the meta of the game, which means once I've done that, I will probably have to go back to live performances, touring, maybe releasing music, because there's quite a few elements of releasing music, kind of flesh them out a bit more with these things considered. So it might actually seem like the game is getting more complicated at this point, and in my eyes it definitely is. Hang on, I'm just going to zap us back. So it might seem as though the game is getting a bit complicated at this point, and it definitely is. But what's also happening is it's taking more shape and it's becoming more of kind of an open world. I definitely don't want you to think of this as an open world game, but the way I'm kind of thinking about it in terms of design at the moment with all of these different decks is they all have a different effect on the world. They all allow the players to interact with the world in different ways and take advantage of the world in different ways, take a chance and be taken advantage of in different ways. So yeah, it is getting a little bit complicated with each element that I add in. But just to quickly go back to our, if it'll open, do I have it here? Where is it? Oh, I don't know where it is. Where did I put? Oh, I don't know where I've put it. Is that it? Oh, there it is, roadmap. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, so as you can see here, we're very much in this fundamental mechanics game, fundamental mechanics stage, and we will be pretty much all the way through this winter as I'm leading into these bits here. So the fundamental mechanics will be becoming more and more solid as we go, but are still more or less flexible at this point. So if something isn't really working in the game, it will come out or it will be adapted. If anything does work, then it will be expanded on, fleshed out, sort of reinforced, made better. What I'm also doing at the same time, which you can see by the card catalogue, is making those base game cards. So that's kind of working hand in hand at the moment, and then once I've done that, I can then move on to this first edition rulebook. So yeah, we're very much getting there at the moment. I'm very satisfied with how it's going. We're more or less like tackling the first, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, 2/5 of the way through nearly. So that's quite exciting. 2/5 of the way through phase 1. Anyway, so then we can move on to phase 2, which will be very much sort of actually testing the game, which is going to be really exciting. Yeah, so I think that's it from me. I will see you again probably tomorrow, where I might actually do some more work on stream, but we'll see what happens. Did I play this out? Why is it queued and not? Oh, for some reason I wanted to look. You can see it here. Def skill. I think that's Jill. Def Jill. Follow G. Fake Jill. Yeah, it's not working. Anyway, yeah, thanks Jill. You're a legend. Oh yeah, and Jill was there at the gig last night, so thanks again. I will be back. Keep your ideas coming in to me. Do say hello in your spare time, but I'll probably be very busy working on the game. And yeah, I'm going on to a Dungeons and Dragons event on Tuesday to kind of speak to people who like Dungeons and Dragons and make more friends in that world. So that should be very exciting. Yeah, that's it from me. Good night, God bless, and have a bloody good birthday.